All right, so we're 2 months past Halloween, and by the time this video comes out, it'll be past Christmas. So
Definitely.
it's the perfect time for our Terrifier 3 review.
Yeah.
That all of you guys have been requesting.
Yeah, probably our most requested review of the year.
Yeah.
Well, we finally got to it.
Sick fuckers. We might kind of rank all of them, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
we'll talk about all of them in this, but you know, it's...
Because we haven't watched any of these together.
No.
So this is going to be a very interesting conversation.
And I saw Terrifier 3 theatrically, so which was cool to see.
I kind of avoided this series for a while. Like, it just didn't interest me. I'm glad I finally watched it. They are very fun movies.
They're fun, but they're actually, you kind of have to psych yourself up to watch them.
Yeah.
Because they're fucking brutal.
The opening scene of Terrifier 3, probably the most brutal in the whole series.
Yeah.
For me, anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, each movie has its own, like, brutal
There's
scene.
the centerpiece.
The centerpiece scene.
Yeah.
Out of all of those centerpiece scenes, the opening of the third one, I think, hit the hardest for me.
It was fucked up.
Yeah.
Yes, it is brutal.
Yeah.
But you like with the kid, you just see the aftermath, you know?
Yeah. It's the aftermath, but just like the scene itself.
Yeah.
Just what's happening.
I feel like the centerpiece in 3 was the chainsaw sequence in the shower, personally.
Yeah, but like the difference there was you were waiting for that bitch to get it.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's one of those like modern college, I have a true crime podcast. Yeah, shut the fuck up.
Opportunist bitches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know like exactly what she was. So you're just waiting for her to get it. And her boyfriend was the typical like slasher boyfriend.
You sound like you want to fuck him.
I don't want to fuck him.
So that scene was fantastic, but you were rooting for Art in that scene, as opposed to like every other scene you're like not rooting for him. Those scenes when they come in the film are fantastic.
Yeah.
And they're just like over the top and ridiculous. As this series has gone on, you're seeing bigger budgets, bigger crews, more competent filmmaking, and as things start to look better, you kind of expect those gory scenes to look better, and they do look better, but at the same time, they do feel just as schlocky as like the first film.
No, and that's kind of what I appreciate about this series is it's definitely like the director Damien Leone. It's cool that he's like taking complete ownership.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It is. And so I kind of feel like if you watch the Halloween series, for example, as those movies go on, it's like a different director each film, and like the premise gets more and more supernatural and ridiculous as it goes on. And part of that's just because it's like in the hands of a new filmmaker each time. Well, Damien's kind of doing that with his own series, but it's all under his own authorship.
Because by
doing
the end
it.
of the third film, it's just like a full-on demonic possession film.
Yeah, exactly.
So it kind of like deviates, but in a good way.
Exactly, yes.
So what sets the first film apart is that it's this slasher film, very low budget. There's really nothing supernatural about him until the end of the film.
Yeah.
The way it starts, if I'm reading it correctly, like he's just a serial killer. He's not supernatural, and then when he dies, he becomes supernatural because like a demon possesses him or something. That first film is kind of like, not throwaway, but in terms of the broad story, it doesn't really matter because you don't get introduced until the second film when you get Sienna.
No, the first film is basically a proof of concept for a slasher.
Exactly. What I like about where the second and third film take it is that the character, Sienna, she actually is like a legit counter to what he is now.
Yeah, you know, he's crafted a worthy final girl.
And I like that. I like that spans the series, so it makes the story more cohesive across multiple films.
It does. The other thing that I like about it is we still don't know the full story, and we don't know exactly what's going on yet, but I feel like each movie gives you just like enough information for you to kind of go with it.
The first film ends where like the lights flicker and he comes back to life, and you're like, what the fuck? So you just assume he's like got some supernatural powers, even though you learn later that wasn't necessarily the case.
Yes.
The second film really dives heavily into that stuff, but doesn't explain anything. So you're left at the end like where you kind of understand the story.
You get it. It's not spoon-fed to you, but you get it.
You get it, but it's not until the third film where her brother really lays it out. Like he's done some research between the second and third film where it's like, okay, here's what's happening. This demon used this serial killer because he's so evil to like break into our world, and now he's possessed. No, he's already like this insane serial killer. Now he's a demon possessed insane serial killer.
It's cool because there's obviously a plan behind the whole thing.
Yeah.
And even though it's kind of vague sometimes, I never feel like, oh, this is vague just because they don't know what the fuck they're doing and they're just like making shit up as they're going.
You can tell he's building to something.
He's building to something, and I like that, and I think again that's really cool that he's actually behind all the films. Like he's taking creative ownership through like all the filmmaking process. And the story just feels very cohesive, even though it is kind of getting ridiculous. As I was saying before, these horror movies, each sequel, whether it be Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, inevitably these things just get dumb. And I think that he's kind of aware of all of that, but he's doing it underneath like his own rules, essentially.
He still has full control over it.
He's got full control over it, and it's like, well, if it's going to go that way, I might as well be the one steering the ship as it goes that way.
And I appreciate that.
I do too. It's cool. It's a cool way of seeing it.
That doesn't always mean that all of the elements that he's showing us really make sense.
Oh no, these movies are far from perfect.
No, well, that's the thing. Like, I like that he's trying new things and building it and growing it for each film. But there's like a lot of questions I have where I'm like, why the fuck is this happening? Or like, how does this happen? Like, Sienna can see the demon, right? Whereas like no one else can. Like, she sees the little girl, right? In the second one. How come her brother can see the demon?
See, I don't remember that.
Like, her brother can see the little girl in the second film.
He did see her, like at the end in the amusement park or whatever.
No, he sees her throughout the film.
Does he? I don't remember.
He sees her. And I was like, wait a minute. I thought she was the one. I thought she was the special one. Is this now just like a familial thing?
Well, there's the plot with her dad too.
Well, that's another thing. It's like, how did her dad have any kind of insight into this? Like, what makes him special? Like, because he's kind of the one that sets this emotion with her.
You have all these questions. I had the same questions.
Now, they might get answered.
I think that they will be. I genuinely do think that they will be. And like, that's why I'm like okay with all of that.
Yeah.
If those questions aren't answered, that's going to piss me off.
Right, because watching the second film, I was starting to get annoyed because I was like, wait a minute. What is all this shit? Like, what's going on here? Like, how come now there's like some stupid little girl? I finished the movie and I was like, it was actually a really good movie. And then the third one, I watched the third one because we talked before I finished the second one.
You were
and I was
like in the middle of the movie.
Fucking movie? This is such a departure from the first film. And you're like, a departure? Or an evolution. And I was like, all right, fair. But you were right. Once I finished it, I was like, I understood it.
Yeah.
And then with the third one, it's like you start to get more pieces of the puzzle, and it's like, okay, this is unfolding nicely now.
It's so funny because when I started the second one, in the scene in the laundromat, when you see the little girl for the first time, I thought the same thing, like, oh my God, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
No, stop.
But going back to that, I still dislike Art having a companion in the second and third film. Like in the third film, he's got Victoria with him the whole time, the disfigured girl, and it's like Jason didn't have a companion, Freddy didn't have a companion, Myers never had a companion. Like it just, I don't like when you've got like your amazing villain, and Art is an incredible villain, and then he's got someone with him now. And sometimes that character can steal a scene.
I agree with you, but whatever the mythology that he's building for these movies...
again, I might not know what that is.
It's the demonic force that's controlling him, whatever, you know. Like,
but he was like a compelling villain before that happened in the first film. Like he didn't need, like, he's not any different now than he was in the first film, despite the presence of the demon.
The little girl in the second one, for me, she was in the background enough to where it wasn't really a thing. But Victoria, however, she kind of, I feel like at the third act of Terrifier 3, she kind of takes the front seat and then like...
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that.
Yeah, and Art's just kind of working in the background.
Yeah,
like,
he's just like her lackey at this point. Which I guess he kind of is because she's the demon.
However,
she's possessed by the demon.
Yes, however the demon mythology works.
Then I was like confused because this demon now I guess is the same demon that possessed Art at the end of the first film. So is this a singular demon and now it's in her and now Art is not possessed? So he can die? Are there multiple demons?
It's the way it works. It's like she's the demon and
it can possess two people at once, or
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they might get into that in the next film.
I feel like they will. Like I feel like there's going to be a satisfying explanation to all of this.
I do too, actually.
And most films, I can't say I feel that way.
But in the moment, I've got questions.
Sure. But I actually kind of like that though, because I feel like
No, it's a good thing.
There's some stuff that's set up in the second one, and then you might not be fully satisfied at the answers, but then they give you a little bit more in 3, and so you're kind of like, oh, you kind of just get the gist of where it's going, without being like spoon-fed, you know. I do appreciate that.
So that kind of covers the lore quite a bit.
I mean, we're talking about this as if it's like fucking high art,
I know,
because it is not whatsoever.
But you know what? As this series grows, it's going to get scrutinized more and more.
My brother and we have arguments about this series. He's seen only the first one, and my brother gives me shit.
No, he's barely seen anything then.
Well, yeah, he absolutely hates the first one. He thinks it's dog shit.
Yeah.
And look, to be fair, if someone doesn't like that movie or just the series in general, I understand. I get it. You know, we are the way we are about movies. We have our opinions about movies. We can be, you know, harsh. We're those kind of people that people say, geez, what do you guys like? You know,
and nitpick the shit out of it. It's just a slasher movie.
Yeah, like, whatever. Well, so for whatever reason, I'm a little bit easier when it comes to the Terrifier films and just like horror movies in general. I mean, there are my like no-goes for horror movies. Like I won't like I don't care what anyone says. That fucking Megan movie, that's gonna suck. Yeah. I haven't seen it, but that's gonna suck. It's PG-13. Fuck
Is
that.
it?
Yes.
Oh, fuck
so
that.
Terrifier is made by a guy who's like in special effects, makeup effects, and so he basically designed a film around what he was good at.
Yeah.
And he made it for like basically the first one, no money.
It's next to nothing.
And so when you watch that, yes, is the filmmaking, the technique, like the aesthetics of the way it's made.
But it's still really entertaining.
No, it's very but it's like very raw and like not in a good way. Like, the first one looks very unpolished.
Yeah.
But you can tell that there's a lot of heart and a lot of passion behind it. And it's as far as like slasher movies go, it delivered. You know, it's got some nasty ass kills in it.
It does.
Art is a great addition to the rogues gallery of
fantastic
cinematic slashers.
Well, I like that you brought up that it is in fact a slasher, because there's something that carries over into this third film as well that I thought we had hopefully left behind in the second film. I don't like when art uses a gun.
I'm not going to tell you again.
Oh, right, yeah.
That really annoys me.
Yes, it does. And I get it. But the shock value of the first one when he pulls out the gun and kills that girl.
The shock value in the first one worked.
Yeah.
Because at that point, he's not supernatural. So yeah, he's kind of like backed into a corner, so he pulls a gun out and shoots the shit out of this girl, which was very shocking. You just killed the only character I almost gave a shit about and brought in her sister in the third act, who I don't give a fuck about at all. That kind of annoyed me more than it shocked me.
Subversive.
Yeah, it was subversive, but it was subversive in a way that made me care less about...
Most of the time when things are subversive, it sucks.
Exactly, yeah. But when he pulls the gun out in the bar, when he's up against those like 3 guys, how shitty is your villain that he has to pull a gun out to equal the playing field for him up against a fat Santa Claus and like a bartender? It's a slasher film. It's not an action film. Like, could you just imagine, like, you give like Jason a shotgun and he's just walking from cabin to cabin, just like blowing like counselors away with a shotgun? Like, it's an entirely different dynamic.
You know, it's funny that you say that, because when I was watching Terrifier 3 and he pulled the gun out, I was thinking, oh shit, that's right. He used the gun in the first one. Like, I forgot about that.
And in the second one, he shoots the mom in the face.
Oh yeah, he's got the shotgun in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean...
No, that was a funny, like,
it was
that
funny,
was just
and
funny.
like he like sawed the shotgun like completely off. So,
Yeah.
So like
it like blew her head clean off.
It was like a shotgun kill, but it was a very art way of doing a shotgun kill.
Exactly.
You know?
But then, like, you know, when you get the little scenes where he's like making that weapon, where he's putting things into that hammer, he's making the liquid nitrogen like spray thing. Like, those are the creative like things you want to see, and that's what makes it fun. Like, he's a slasher. He's got the chainsaw. He's going in with the shower scene.
Well,
like, why did he just go in there with a shotgun and just blast them both? Like,
he's obviously a sadistic fuck.
Oh, sure.
And yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what you said about him like having to level the playing field. But to me, it's like he'll level the playing field until he can.
Like, when he has to.
When he has to, then like, okay, cool. Now that everything's the level that I want it to be at, now I can be a sadistic prick.
Right. Because like when he's in that bar, and I kept thinking to myself in this situation, like, he's gonna go for the gun again. He's gonna go for the gun because there's no way that he's gonna be able to pull like a knife out and take these 3 dudes out. They would subdue him and they take him out. He pulls a pistol out. He shoots 2 of them in the head. Clint Howard, great cameo, by the way.
That was cool, yeah.
And then he ties Santa up, and then the gun goes away, and then he gets back to his sadistic shit. It's like, I get it. I'd rather see a more creative way for him to take them out.
That's fair.
That's probably my biggest critique with art.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that like he is just as one note as you can get, like, and that he's great as a villain, but if you want to compare him, like you said, to the Rogues Gallery, like you really get nothing about where he came from or anything about, like the closest you get is in the original film when the movie starts, he's like putting the makeup on. Like he's getting ready to go out for the night and be a psycho.
Yeah. And
so he obviously was a person before that who
had
a life.
This actually kind of bothered me because yes, in the first one he puts on, you actually see he's putting on makeup, even the mouth
because
portion,
he's not
that's all makeup.
possessed yet.
But in the second one, at the very, very, very end, when like his head comes out of her or whatever, and he's got the makeup on already. So I was like, why would that come out with him? You know what I mean? Like, and I know that like now basically he's like taken like the demon as like
he's not human
infested
anymore.
him in now, and I get that, but when you go back and you watch the first one after that, it's like, oh yeah, that's all just makeup. It's supposed to be makeup. So I just, you know, there's just kind of an annoying observation.
Yeah, because that they included that in the first film to show that like, he's...
Well, and then I think her brother in the third one talks about how he was just, or she does, or Sienna does, about he was a serial killer at one point. So they do mention some things
so they
about
mention
his
like he
past.
writes a letter to his sister and it says, like she reads it and it's like sometimes demons try to get into our world and the only way they can break in is if they can possess like a truly evil person.
See, that's the lore building right there.
Yeah, and that's great. It's like, oh, thank you, because this is like kind of what was being hinted at in the second film.
And just gets confirmed.
And it just gets confirmed in the third film, which is great. Now, a lot of the third film, it kind of felt like two films. Because Art was kind of just like bouncing around to different like kill scenarios while Sienna was just off being traumatized from the events of the second film. So like, and their paths don't really converge until the last scene of the movie. So it definitely felt a little more disjointed, like pacing wise and story structure than like the second film. I thought the second film was tighter.
It was. I agree with that. And I think the biggest thing that I didn't really care for in the third one is the victim trauma that she was going through.
It's okay. I thought it was okay, but I did think they went a little far with it.
That's what I mean. They spend too much time with it.
Yeah, they spent like basically every scene you're with her is just her going through that shit. So
it would be okay if she obviously has this trauma and she's going through that. But if the film was structured in a way where there were way more interactions between her and Art, like that the whole film was them like kind of...
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
They're like building this up now. It's like they are like truly...
She can still have the traumatic side to her. I'm not saying that you got to get rid of that aspect, but the whole movie is just basically her just going through all these traumatic episodes.
Yeah,
and
I did like that she had a vision of her friend Brooke from the second film who died, and I was like, oh good, because you did get her killed. Like that kind of was your fault.
Yeah, it was cool. It's cool the actress came back to do it.
Yeah, she came back for that one scene. I did find Sienna more tolerable in the third film than in the second film.
Oh yeah, well, I liked her character better in the second one, but her acting was better in the third one.
Yes.
No offense to her, she seems like a cool person. Like I've seen interviews with her and stuff. And she's gotten better, but in that second one, fucking rough, man. Like part of like the shitty acting still kind of works for the genre and kind of works for the tone of the movie he's going for.
Yeah, she's a lot better in the third one.
Way better. She's like a normal actress in the third one.
Yeah.
Maybe they had more time to work on character stuff and, and the drama. He had a budget for the third one.
Yeah.
So
a much bigger budget.
Much bigger. Still not huge.
No, $2 million or something.
But enough to be able to like let the makeup people do their thing and like now I can focus on
exactly.
camera
he was able
work
to focus
and the
on
actors
performances more probably.
So that's probably a part of it, you know.
Oh, and Savini had a cameo too.
Yes, he did, which was awesome. Yeah. When I was watching it with my wife, I was like, "That's Tom's," because like we just got done watching Night of the Living Dead remake, and he directs that. So you know, I was pointing that out. It was just cool.
Getting back to Jonathan, I was happy to see him walking in the third film, considering that Art was eating his fucking Achilles out at the end of the second film. So that was good. I figured he'd be in a wheelchair in the third film, but no, he's walking around. He's fine. He's in college.
Well, they sidelined him a perfect amount in the third one.
He was sidelined quite a bit. I do not like how they unceremoniously killed him off screen. However, he might not be dead. That might have just been a ruse by Art and Victoria.
Possibly.
But
I wouldn't be surprised either way.
Yeah, either way. I mean, for a character like that, who's been around since the beginning of the second film and who's so closely tied to Sienna, I figured we'd like get a visual. Now, they also killed her uncle, Greg. off camera,
Yeah.
which who fucking cares? But her brother, like, I figured you'd see a little more of that.
The other thing that they lost with her is the iconography of her wearing that like Valkyrie costume.
That was pretty
in
cool.
in the second one.
Yeah, it was cool, like seeing her go up against Art, like in that, because it did really feel like, okay, we're at the final like battle here.
Just seeing her in that Valkyrie costume, taking him on, was very cool. Good idea.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, it was. So we'll see where they take it in the fourth one. I mean, you watch these movies because they have like the most crazy, grotesque kills.
They do. The makeup effects are gnarly.
They are.
The hacksaw in the first one is still.
Oh, where he saws Dawn in half.
That's pretty intense.
That was fantastic.
The scene in the second one where he kills her friend in a room.
That was probably like the standout scene.
That's so brutal. I mean, it's so brutal that it's kind of cartoony, but it's...
like with the point where like the mom walks in the room and she's on the bed and still alive, and it's like, she's not still alive. That's fucking insane. Like, she would have lost so much blood at this point.
Dude, she would have gone into shock and like she would have just been out.
She would have been out after like when he ripped her arm in half. Like, she'd be gone. Like, it's so ridiculous, but like...
It's very fucked up and very mean-spirited.
Yes.
And I loved it.
But it's so fun to watch.
Yes.
Because you're kind of like, how far is he going to take some of this shit in these scenes?
It's so inventive.
Yes.
Like, as disturbing and as fucked up as it is, it's extremely inventive.
Yes.
And I appreciate that.
I do think they're a little long.
Well, the second one, that's my biggest complaint.
Is too long.
Aside from her performance, is the length. And it's like, holy shit. And you know, I think I texted this to you. It's like he had the option of doing a theatrical cut and then was like, all right, well, I can just like later on throw all the scenes in and make a director's cut.
Dude.
He just automatically out the gate went with that.
Yeah, 2 and 3 are just like watching the director's cuts.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the first one is like a tight 90 minutes, and you're like, yep, this is the theatrical cut.
Well, that's all I could afford. For the
Of
first one.
course, yeah, right. But the second one, it's like an hour longer, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I get that you're overcorrecting from the fact that like you had like no character development in the first film. It's like, well, yeah, it's more of a, like you said, a proof of concept. But that second film was like too big of an overcorrection.
Yeah.
Like, there are some scenes in the second one that you could have kept the scene and kept everything that was being said and the ideas behind the scene, but just shorten them. Like, just tighten the editing up and just cut some of the fat out.
Yeah, I mean, even though you're right, and I agree with that. Watching the second one, yes, it's long, and you can tell it's long, but the pacing doesn't suffer catastrophically.
No, I agree with that. I don't think it's a
Yeah.
pacing issue. I just think it just goes on too long. Like,
Yes.
you're getting every scene.
No horror movie should be 2.5 hours long.
No.
You know.
Every scene like did convey some kind of information or move the story along.
Yeah.
When he goes and blows up the kids at the mall, which that scene was just hilarious.
Could have been more fucked up.
It
but
could
it
have
was,
been more fucked
but
up,
it
but
was
like you kind
hilarious.
of just get the one explosion when the kid opens the box and you don't see anything.
Yeah.
It just like cuts to like a wide shot, like a fireball comes up, and it's like, oh, I was expecting to see like limbs flying everywhere, which would have been funny, but we didn't get that. But like all of that was designed so later on when her uncle's watching the news, he hears this story and then like Sienna overhears it and she's like, oh my God, like that whole entire scene was just for that moment. You could have come to the same scene with Sienna like freaking out like, oh my God, it's art, it's art.
That's true.
In a shorter way, you know, but then we wouldn't have this amazing scene where he goes to the mall and blows a bunch of kids up, you know?
You're right. They do address that a little bit better in the third one, but it's still too long.
Well, I think that had something to do with his distributor was like, you got to get this movie down to 2 hours.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'll do my best.
Yeah. It's remarkable that he was able to get the budget he got and still have full creative control over it, essentially.
Yeah.
Like it was released theatrically unrated.
Yeah. That doesn't happen a lot.
No, I can't even think of another. I'm sure it has, but I just can't offhand. I can't think of anything.
Yeah, a lot of theaters won't touch certain
Unrated.
film.
Yeah, exactly. And that's cool. It's, to me, this is like a great success story.
Oh yeah.
And so
And
that's
he gets
another.
to keep like most of those profits.
Yeah, and
so-
that's another reason why I really enjoy these films. It's because, like, again, you see this guy with like full passion on display. Obviously, he busted his ass. The first and second one, he was actually doing the makeup effects himself.
Right, exactly.
I mean, he had a team with him too.
Sure.
But he's still doing. He has to show up, not only like plan all the shots out, plan his day as a director out, but
Yep.
he's also doing the fucking
Work with the
makeup
actors.
effects.
Yeah.
He's doing all of that stuff, and so
Yeah.
you know, like kind of are in that world somewhat, so we know what that takes and how hard that is, and so you can appreciate it from that aspect. Another thing I like about the third one, obviously they had a budget, and like as we're alluding to,
Yes.
they have a budget, so the filmmaking in the third one is much better.
Oh yeah. I mean, even the jump from 1 to 2 is like huge, but the jump from 2 to 3, they jump to anamorphics for the
I
third.
was just gonna say, and like, I
it
talk
jumped
about
to
that.
Panavision.
I talk about anamorphic a lot on this channel. I love it, but this one was shot anamorphic, and it looks like it looks good. It's a very nice looking movie.
It does look good.
Especially with that Christmas aesthetic. They didn't use, like nowadays, these fucking Christmas lights, all these LED bullshit lights.
They use like real.
They had like the ceramic Christmas lights in
yes,
this movie
like
from the 80s and 90s. You know,
yeah, they looked good.
Yeah, it looked great, especially lensed with that, you know, the camera package they had. It looked amazing.
Yeah. Here's another thing now. There was that little nod to Black Christmas when he's like in the chair.
Oh yeah, at the beginning,
yeah.
Which I liked. I like him hibernating for a year or whatever.
Dude, what the fuck? Okay, he comes back to life, and then he goes back there, and then sits in a chair, and then just like hibernates for 5 years.
I thought that was cool.
What the fuck is that?
I like that.
Dude, that happened, and I was like, well, why?
It wasn't his time yet.
What was that?
He had to wait. They had to regroup. Spiritually.
Okay.
It's kind of like Michael Myers. Like, why isn't he just killing year round? It's only on Halloween.
Right. Yeah, well, I feel like, you know, like you go from Halloween to Halloween 2.
It's the same
It
night.
literally takes place the same night, you know?
But every sequel after that, though, it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's just like whatever.
Like 4, 5, and 6 has no excuse.
Yeah,
Like, they
yeah,
just, in Halloween 4, they're just they happen to be transporting him on October 30th.
Yeah. We're always moving this guy around Halloween. Why don't you just keep him locked up through the holiday and move him around Christmas?
But then in Halloween 4 at the end, when because he gets shot up and then he falls down that well or whatever, and then they puss out of the Halloween 4 ending, because the little girl stabs her surrogate mother. So in 5, they don't go that direction. Michael Myers is just kind of
chilling.
He's just sleeping for that. And then Halloween comes along and he wakes up again and kills that bum that's been like taking care of him for a whole year with his mask on. And like, is he like taking off his overalls so he could take a shit throughout that year?
Yeah, just these little decisions here and there. I was like, why? Why is he sleeping for 5 years? But hey, whatever. I digress. Let's rank it.
If I had to rank Terrifier 3, I'd probably give it a 7.5.
Okay, I was gonna go 6.5 out of 10.
Oh shit, okay.
Yeah, I'm a whole point lower than you.
Okay.
Yeah, there were just some things that kind of bothered me.
I highly enjoyed it.
Yeah,
it's far
I
from
did
perfect.
enjoy it too.
It's far from perfect, but and again, if you guys like are fuck that, those movies suck. I totally understand why people would not like these films.
Right. I ended up giving it a 6.5 because I give the second film a 7.5.
That's weird. Because I do like the second film better, but do I think the second film is an 8?
I know you like the second film better.
Probably would rate the second one a 7.5 as well, because I do like 2 and 3 a lot, and I feel like it's just kind of like whatever mood I'm in, I might prefer to watch one or the other. I'd probably give the first one a 6 out of 10, just if we're rating all 3 of them.
Yeah, if I go 7.5, 6.5, yeah, the first one I'd probably go 5.5. So I guess that kind of like is our order of how we like these films.
Yeah, the first one is definitely my least favorite.
Yeah,
but
it's 2, 3, 1. I think is the.
That's fair. That's
order.
Probably what I would give it, even though maybe sometimes I might prefer watching 3 over 2.
There's a lot of great moments in the first film. Like
the
entire sequence where he follows them into the pizza shop and he's just sitting there looking at them. Like
the tension is very good.
Very good tension because the girl is like just staring back at him the whole time and the friend's just like, I thought it worked really well in the first film. On the other scale,
not really. I mean, you can say like, oh, chick being the hero of the movie,
well,
but
that's
like
just every horror movie
it's horror
ever.
movies, yeah. The final girl.
The thing is like,
and you can say the inception of the final girl is like ground zero of like the feminist movement in film. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But it's one thing to have that in a movie, and it's another thing for it to be like a political message. And
it works really well in this type of film because the idea behind it is like you pit somebody who's like not physically matched to like whatever.
What are you talking about,
psycho man
what
that they're going
What are you
up
talking
against.
about? Women have the same
right. However,
muscle mass and
there is a
strength
scene
that we have.
in the beginning of the third one with the security guard at the hospital goes over and Victoria just like slams this giant dude into the wall and she's holding him there and he's like, oh, and he like hits her like twice and it's like, well, I guess she's got demon powers running through her.
Oh, yeah.
Because when they cut to the wide, it's like this tiny girl holding this giant man up against the wall, and I was like, just the visual of that was hilarious. Watching those movies, nothing ever like ticked.
No, I'm watching
My,
it, and like
my
I have
radar.
no idea where Damien Leone's politics lie,
are,
and that's
or-
great.
Yeah.
Don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I wasn't
Yeah.
thinking about that once during the whole film, or all three of these movies, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Yep.
So I don't
Yeah.
know, in terms of like giving the series as a whole rainbow, zero.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing that stands out like, oh, this is clearly agenda driven.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just fun, gory, creative slasher movies that are just getting bigger and bigger, and we'll see where they go.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be cool to see what he does with 4.
Well, yeah, because the third one ends where her little cousin like falls in a hole to hell or something, and she's like, "I will find you," and it's like, how? That girl's fucked. What are you talking about? So we'll see where they go with that.
But I do like how, you know, it does
set up the
there's
next
an
one.
obvious plan. I recommend these films.
Definitely recommend them if you can get down with some crazy gore.
Yeah, you
You
see
can stomach that.
a
then,
guy's nutsack being chopped up by a
Oh
chainsaw.
man, that was the second one, right?
That was the third one.
Oh, that was the third one, right? Oh, it was the shower scene.
Yes.
Oh, it was the second one where the guy gets stabbed in the nuts like 50 times.
Oh, fuck, that's right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right, in the parking lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.